Landmines and jellyfish. Welcome back to Knives, I guess. And I swear to God, if I ever find out someone invented the bicycle, I'm going to lose my mind. But for the last week, I've been carrying the Ka-Bar Becker BK40. And you guys picked this one out. Because my live stream had to get rescheduled, you guys picked this out from a community post. It was between this and the petrified fish beluga, and I thought the petrified fish would take it, but you guys wanted to see the Becker BK40, and that brings us to this point in space and time. You and me together. We did this. But this was a gift from Adam for America. I traded him some beads for a couple of knives, and he over-delivered on his end by a lot, so let's thank him in the comments for making this possible, and let's take a look at it, because it'll bother me if I don't. First things first, and most importantly, the pocket clip is tip up, and say it with me, children, which is the Lord's carry. It could be tip down, and we know I hate tip down, but we all live in sin. It is reversible. The scales are GFNPA 66, and yes, those are definitely letters and numbers. We got a thumb stud, so let's flick the stud. We've got 3.559 inches of Os 8A, and the Rockwell is 55 to 58. That is coming from Ka-Bar's website, and Ka-Bar's website says that the edge is at a 15-degree angle. Now, something kind of interesting as I was looking for the specs on this is Knife Center's website says the edge angle is 31 degrees. That doesn't have any effect here. It's obviously not 31 degrees, but I thought it was interesting. So, I forced it into your face holes. But, so the edge, I can't tell if it's factory or not. It's a bit shiny for a factory edge. Let's see if I can get enough light on that. I can see grind marks, which looks like they might be from the factory, but it's shinier than most factory edges are, so I'm not making any guarantees on that. I will say the pocket clip is not factory. The factory pocket clip is a wire pocket clip, and if I was going to carry this for longer than a week for a review, I would definitely be getting a wire pocket clip and putting it back on there just for personal preference. I like wire pocket clips, and I've only got one, and that's on my Devo Growler V2. Now, this pocket clip did its job well enough, but the retention on it ain't that strong. Like, that flexes out a lot with, like, no effort, and it worries me a little bit, but I'm not in an environment where that's probably going to be an issue. In the waistband, it did good. It was pretty inoffensive, but it was bulky. Like, this thing is definitely beefy. In the pocket, it did just fine. And with this thing being a heavy knife, if you carry heavy knives and your pants aren't basically fit to form, heavy knives will pull on that side of your pants and it feels like you're lugging around a boat anchor. Some knives are a lot worse than others. So I've become fond of carrying in the pocket for most of the larger ones now because it just distributes the weight better and makes it easier to carry. But I will say, as big as this is, I mean, I got extra large hands, and you see plenty of dingus hanging out on both ends here. Like, that's a lot of dingus. You know, a 3.6-inch blade on a handle that's right at about 4 inches, just a hair less maybe, that takes up a lot of room. So it was kind of hard to dig my keys out from around that and everything else in my pocket, so I wound up having to pull this out of my pocket to get stuff out of it more often than not. So that was a little bit annoying, but that's also kind of the cost of admission for a big knife. Like, it's what you got to put up with. You've either got a boat anchor on your hip or you got a pocket full of knife. And this thing is on the heavy end. It's got some gravity to her, so let's take a look at just how much, because as you and I both know, as civilized people, the angle of the dangle is directly proportional to the mass of the ass. So let's see just how much. And we got 155 grams on here. Let's put this in perspective and go to the opposite end of the spectrum. We have got the Benchmade Bug Out CF Elite. 52 grams. So this is 3 times the weight that the Bug Out is. She definitely got some gravity to her. And so, like, now that all that's out of the way, the experience carrying this was pretty good overall. It was interesting because I have been spoiled by a lot of modern amenities. I've been spoiled by flipper tabs. I've been spoiled by thumb holes, spoiled by axis locks. You know, just having thumb studs on a knife now is kind of boring. And it's weird to say that because once upon a time, like, I think I had one knife, that Schrade 470T Beast that had a thumb stud on it. Everything else had been nail nicks and all that. So at one point in my life, this would have been mind-blowing. I have become spoiled. Now, that being said, this thing is on washers, and the action on it when you're opening it feels just weird. Like, let's flick the stud again. It's a very slow open. It's on these washers, and it could be a little bit of a tight pivot too. I didn't want to loosen it up and screw up the centering on the blade if I didn't have to, because it's pretty well centered right here. The lock engagement is okay. It could be better. I don't know if you can really see that effectively, but yeah, the centering on the lock could be a bit better. But you know, the way I use folders, I'm never going to put pressure on the back of the blade in a way that would cause that to fold on me. I've had knives close on me before, and I can tell you right now, it is not pleasant. So it's just, this one's kind of weird to me. It's hard to articulate the feeling and the thought on it, but this feels more like an outdoor tool than it does a knife. You know, I've got a Hori Hori knife that I stole from a job a while back that has the same kind of feel to it. You know, they're totally different knives. They do their job in a totally different way, but that Hori Hori knife is 100% an outdoor tool before it's a knife. I sharpened it. I can use it for some cutting tasks, but it is designed for digging. You know, this is one of those things where it feels like it's most at home at my old jobs doing landscape maintenance and groundskeeping, where I was doing a ton of very, very dirty, nasty work. Because this thing right here, I can promise you, no matter how dirty or filthy you got this, you just take some water and rinse it out, open it and close it once or twice, and you're back in business. Like, this thing is definitely built for some filth. And the HRC on this, the 55 to 58, when I first looked at it, looking at it through the eyes of someone who's gotten used to the modern concrete cowboy carries, that looked really disappointing, because you're looking at around 61 to 63 HRC for, you know, what most people want to carry for most daily tasks. That's your edge retention right there. That's your cutting power. Like, that's a lot, and it dictates, I think, how fine of an edge you can put on it, but I'm not 100% on that, and you'll have to bear with me because I'm learning this as I go. I am certainly no knifeonomist yet. And, but taking a look at it from where I used to be and how I used to work, and the number of blades that I've snapped, and the number of blade tips I've snapped, doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing with a knife to begin with, this would have been really nice to have. You know, that Schrade 470T Beast that I'm so fond of, that I've had for so many years now. I snapped the tip on that, and I was doing something it wasn't intended to do. I was hollowing out a golf ball. I had come into possession of a lot of golf balls, as well as some of my coworkers from some work that we did. And a couple of guys started carving into them. I was like, I want to do that, and I just hollowed them out into a ring, and then bounced the ring around and made weird stuff. So, you know, like, I know what can be done to knives, and this probably would have taken that and been taking it like a champ. You know, and like, if I was out laying sod or something like that, I would have no compunction about using this to cut around a sprinkler head. I would not. The Hori Hori knife, that did a great job for it. It was perfect for that, but, you know, if I was carrying in an environment like I used to work in, a very dirty, filthy, nasty environment where I had to make a lot of hard cuts and really abuse it, I would reach for this. Like the AD10, that's built for that. The Formax Scout, that's built for that. And I'd be happy carrying those, but they weigh a lot. They're not one-handed opening and closing, or at least not safe, convenient one-handed opening and closing, because that AD10 and that Formax Scout will guillotine you. It's happened to me before, and it pops you right here when it swings closed, and now you're bleeding. So I would be grabbing this before I grab those. And I would probably be happy to carry it, and then I'd be like kind of disappointed when it got dull, at least back then, because I didn't have sharpening equipment and didn't know how to hand sharpen yet. But, you know, for that kind of work, like if you're doing a lot of heavy outdoor work and a lot of farm work, this is what you want to reach for right here, unless you need something way beefier and you're going really ham on them. And like, trying to judge this and put it into a proper scale is kind of hard, because it's a different scale than, say, oh, I don't know, the Gen Captain right here. Like, they're not being gauged by the same metrics outside of they both cut. You know, this is not going to survive the kind of environment this will thrive in. It's not. It's a different knife, and it's D2. It's a higher HRC. It won't stand up to what this will stand up to. So let's take a look at the cutting power on it, or at least the cut on paper, just to show you how nice that is. Because I did the cut test on the plastic on pallets, and it did pretty good there. I had no major issues with it. I had a good factory edge, not a great one. Like, it's doing that well enough, so, you know, like, Factory edge, I'd probably give it a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10. And that's just stacking it up against me hand sharpening things and other factory edges I've gotten. So good, solid working edge on it. And again, I'm not sure it's a factory edge, but we're just going to treat it like it is for the purposes of this video because I don't have any other options. Now, that HRC is going to become a focal point of the Cardboard Slayer session this gets, because I'm definitely curious to see if that is going to be what I think it is, a very fast edge wear down. I can't imagine it's going to hold it for nearly as long as something up in the 60s. And that 55 to 58 is a pretty wide range from what I can tell. I've seen people call 59 to 62 a wide range, so I gotta guess it is here too. Again, I'm learning this stuff as I go, so bear with me. I'm sure somebody in the comments that knows more than I do is going to shed some more light on it for you and for me as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. It's going to be going on the table tonight to see if the D20 of Destiny picks it out so that we can party with this thing. But if it doesn't, we'll get to it eventually because I am definitely interested in checking this out. I fed it some cardboard, and it did take some pressure to cut through it, but this is some fairly thick blade stock. Like, it's not crazy thick, but it's thicker than we've been using in a lot of cases. So it took some work to push through it, but it pushed through it just fine. And that was only a couple of real quick cuts while I was at work because I've been busy all week, and, I wanted to save thrashing the edge properly for Cardboard Slayer. Again, I got to treat it as a factory edge and how I got it out of the box, which I wish it was on the factory edge and I could confirm that so that we knew what we were getting into, but that's okay. But yeah, so I mean, overall for this kind of knife design, for this kind of work, I would give it probably about a 7.5 out of 10. A little bit smoother of an action and maybe a touch higher HRC and we'd be in the butter zone. And of course, having that wire clip on there would be nice. But again, that's kind of an aftermarket deal. Somebody put that on there, so I can't ding it too hard for that. So overall, I like it for what it is. I like it for what it does, and I would have been happy to have this back when I was doing landscaping work. So that is everything I have got to tell you about the Ka-Bar Becker BK40. So all that being said, thanks for looking at my crap. Subscribers, you guys are awesome. Y'all are pouring in faster than I could have possibly expected. I cannot thank you guys enough for the time you're spending here. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I have got 4 knives to give away at 2K, and we are heading towards that way faster than I expected. Again, I can't thank you enough. Comments, I love some feedback. If you've got one of these, share your experience. Do you agree with me that this is kind of an outdoor tool before it's a knife? Or what do you think about it? Anything else you want to share? But all that being said, y'all have a nice day.